Thanks, Eric. Thank you all for being here. We were talking a little bit this morning. I want to say a couple things. Got here, we had breakfast this morning, then walked around the campus. And first off, it's a stunningly beautiful campus. One of the things I was most impressed with, I hope you all appreciate, was that spot in the Gleason Library where the students, that study space. It's just remarkable watching them work with that and how open it was, et cetera. And as a result of that, one of the things that we were talking, he was talking about the uniqueness of these sorts of collaborations and how universities work. And it really is the case. I'm really grateful to be here. We were talking about corporations. Corporations wouldn't necessarily invite their partners to come in and take a look at their secrets and see what's going on and come talk about them. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And before I go any further in talking about what it is we're up to at Vanderbilt, and it is a vast array. I was also talking to Eric this morning about how trying to pull together what we're doing is somewhat of a mess because it grew organically before we started focusing on how to make this work. So I'm going to be pulling things together. I want to encourage you. I have plenty to talk about, but I think this might work best is if you have a question about any particular instance. I'm happy to take questions during the talk and see this as a conversation. If you don't, I'll just keep rambling on too, and I'm happy to do that toward the end. But anything that pops up, if you say, my gosh, I need a little more understanding of that, please do feel free to stop me during the presentation. When I was first putting this together, Eric offered me a couple of questions that might be a way of doing this. And I think they were pretty wise ones because they're some of the questions that he asked or said I could use as launching points. I think we share as universities, and in fact are good launching points because they are launching the launching points that he suggested are ones that actually led to the creation of the position I'm in now. And one of the ways he said that I could do this was to look at the university strategic plan. All universities are going through strategic planning processes, it seems like constantly, because we're always leading to campaigns constantly. So we just went through a strategic planning process 2 summers ago. I was on the executive committee for this. And I was on the executive committee. I'm telling you a little bit about this to give you background, not about me so much as about how this position got created. About 4 years ago, the chancellor of the university had come to me in the dean's office because I study media ecology or teach about it, et cetera, and said, I want you to put together a committee, university-wide, including the medical center, that looks at what we're doing, not online education so much as he was interested in social media, classroom education, any sort of digital technology. Put together that committee, what we discovered in that process, what I think most universities would discover until they put it under one place, is that we had a remarkable inventory of projects going on, but we had no clue, and we weren't talking to each other. We had work going on all over the place that was happening that we didn't talk to one another about. And in fact, the medical center, which is where we have a very large department of biomedical informatics, was doing more creative work in terms of technology, educational technology, than anyone else on campus. Now, one of the bad points of this is last year Vanderbilt decided to separate its medical center off from the university. But I do want to talk a little bit about what we could learn from them and how this came about. As the next step, after we gave the chancellor a series of recommendations and we instituted those as a university, I was also placed on the strategic planning committee. And I think as a result of that, part of the strategic plan involved educational technologies. But I think it would be difficult to have a strategic plan now that didn't involve that. But in that process, we identified that area as something that we were so siloed in that we needed someone to some position or office to bring that all together. And I think that's what led to the creation of the position that I'm now in. And it leads to some of the questions. And that's, again, as I say, you're going to see, as this unfolds, you're going to see me pointing to things which were some developed under my office, some not, but getting pulled under because we're learning how much we have to learn from each other at the university itself. The pillars of our strategic plan, I'm just listing here, undergraduate, to show you how all 4 of these were supposed to be equally important to us as we go forward. Undergraduate residential experience, we've had a lot of interest in building up commons and residential houses, learning living experience. These will all get tied back in together. Trans-institutional programs, Vanderbilt, and the reason why I want to point at that for just a second is we had to put this in as a strategic plan because, in fact, Vanderbilt was so decentralized, so siloed, that we had to find ways This is not just in educational technology, but in almost all research. We had to find ways to break down barriers, to pull us together. It was almost impossible to do teaching across colleges. It was almost impossible to do research across colleges. It was so messy. So we've developed a number of different ways: university courses, TIPS awards, which are transitional program awards to support research across of all types across the colleges. Focus on graduate education in that level. Then the other two, healthcare solutions, of course, something I think all universities have to think about really hard right now, especially if you're connected to a medical center. And then educational technologies. And again, I want to point out of 4 strategic pillars, right? This being one of them shows the importance we're trying to put on thinking about what it is we're doing. Educational technology strategies, the way it was written up in the strategic plan. We're working to transform educational models through technology and research at Vanderbilt to build international reputation. One aspect of what we're trying to do is build international reputation. The second one, work in the area, including cutting-edge research to assess effectiveness of new educational technologies, allowing us to identify, pilot, and implement best practices. So 2 things I want to say here. The attitude going in is we need to take seriously, right? Not think of educational technologies as online education or this or that, or one aspect of what we do in certain courses, but take seriously that everything that we do as a university is going to involve educational technologies of some sort. Even if a professor's not implementing them in the classroom, the students are, the mindset is. So how do we develop best practices for our faculty? How do we research that, not just through practice, but also through research and hiring people to research these issues and pull them together? Has to become part of the process. It's interesting how the international reputation part of this comes up so high. What we discovered, and it was really great, our conversation this morning, because we discovered so many things that were similar. We've discovered as a university a really good national reputation, but we still can go to other countries and they may have heard of us or they may think we're something else, but they don't know what we are or who we are exactly. So how do we use something that can level, right, flatten the earth and develop a reputation higher? And that's a very important part of this process. So not only to make the education better, but to get the word out about it, what it is we are, what we're doing because the university's mission, right, to become a better and better research and teaching institution. We do that by becoming more global. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit, what I've sort of done to develop this is to talk about locations on campus, and then I'm going to talk about specific programs, and then I'm going to talk about places. So not centers, but actual places on campus that are open for faculty. VITAL was developed directly as a result of the recommendations of the committee I was in charge of a couple of years ago. This is the Vanderbilt Institute for Digital Learning. And it was charged by the chancellor and the provost, and you can read this: facilitate means by which on-campus education and learning are enhanced through online and other digital technology. That is, we had the people there who could support, who could teach, who were like a genius bar for faculty interested in this. Promoting research, right? So how do we help promote research into this area, not just the doing of it, but researching it. Encouraging and overseeing world and local community service. At Vanderbilt, this was, we joined Coursera at the same time that you did. So how do we begin to get information out, to serve the globe, to get information out, not just through MOOCs, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but also are there other types of programs? So the medical center had a number of grants to get information out on sort of taking care of AIDS patients, et cetera. How do we get that information out of the service to a global audience? And to promote the sharing of resources, human interface best practices on digital learning, both on campus and off campus, right? Sharing this, that we are all in this together as a community. So working on those, and that's the mission of VITAL. What is VITAL made up of? It's a pretty small group, and I'm really impressed and proud of how much they do. These aren't the only folks on campus, but this is their dedication. There are 2 project managers who are involved in course design, both for faculty on campus, but also for MOOCs, for any type of course design that's going to get done, that's going to involve online technology. That's their sole job. And I say that's their job. They're supposedly 40 hours a week. They're working 60 hours a week on this at least, trying to help get courses online. Again, MOOCs, individual courses, individual projects, but also some of the online programming that we're now doing for not for credit, but are not MOOCs either. 2 videographers. I say videographers, of course, they're doing all types of sequencing and work. 2, I say roving researchers, and when I called them this the other day, I think they took umbrage to it, but I'm really trying to say something sort of positive. We have 2 people at Vital whose sole job is to do research into the effectiveness of online technology. But they don't have projects, like they're not sitting in an office just doing this as researchers. They're doing this for others and called upon by others. So if someone is doing something on campus, if someone is teaching online, School of Nursing is a great example. The School of Nursing can call them up and say, we need a study, we want this information done, yada, yada. So they move from place to place. They take on any project on the university for online research. We have 6 graduate fellows. These are people whose stipends are dependent upon them working at Vital to help promote research, to help do other types of work. Their work can be as, I'll give you an example that's not even going to sound, it's very sexy, it almost sounds very mechanical. I did an experiment with myself 2 years ago when I was first taking on this role, and I was thinking, if I'm a faculty member at Vanderbilt and I want to do something new in the classroom, what happens? What am I likely to do, right? And so I just came up with, I'm going to teach podcasting as one of the assignments for a class, and it was just an experiment. I don't know how to do it, and I didn't know what to do with podcasting. I'm a faculty member in my office. What do I do? And I thought, I guess I'll look online. There's got to be something on here at Vanderbilt. And I couldn't find it very easily. So I thought, what I would do now is call up my friend at the University of Texas who I know who does this, and I would learn from him. Or I would just quit. Because anytime we put up a barrier to doing these things, faculty have all types of great ideas. You all do, I do, when I'm teaching. If it is hard for me to learn to do it, I won't do it. I can rely on my old ways much easier than I can doing something else. That's what I'll do. So I looked at the campus and I found out, my gosh, we've got resources, and I'm going to talk about some of this in just a second, to do this. There are people on campus whose job is to teach podcasting. They're at the library. I had no clue. I found them by accident. So I had the graduate students do an inventory of all those types of resources and put together a website for faculty on. It's really simple, and I didn't put the link here, but it's set up that if you want to learn blank, here's who you contact. So you go straight through anything you'd like to learn, who does it on campus, and there might be multiple places we do it, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. And I give them projects like that so that we can help make the campus not just culturally literate, digitally literate, but also how do we help instructors and others find the means to get that outreach. Vital's job, as I've said, is to produce MOOCs. We'll talk about those in a second. We joined at the same time as you, and probably for the same reasons. We thought MOOCs would be a great way to experiment with online education, to work out some of the kinks. Secondly, to provide service to the globe, right, as part of a research university, getting the word out of information. And then third, that building of our international reputation. We thought we could do all those at once. We also produce special projects for the Provost office, tips, as I told you about, transitional projects on campus. What we're doing this year, a project that actually one of our videographers came up with as an idea, and I think it's a brilliant idea. If you get a tips, and these are big, these grants can be $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. If you get one of those grants now, we're also offering at the end of your project to produce, and I say a video, it's not just a video, it's a website of the story of your project, an outreach about whatever the research proposal is. And this is both for humanities, for sciences, et cetera. Whatever it is, we want to produce something for you to allow you to show the globe what you've done in this research. It's not required, but we offered this to every person who received a TIPS grant, and every one of them asked for this. They said they thought this would be a good way to get the word out. Vital's also now producing non-degree programs, non-degree courses, and perhaps a course for credit. We're very conservative as a university on this, so we're not going to be out in front anywhere. We're a 100% residential campus, or 90-something% residential campus. We're not going to be offering courses to anyone off campus for credit, except for some of our own students. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is where we're having to learn from others, because we are so slow to get some of this done, except for, like a lot of places, the School of Nursing, right? And I'll get to that as well. Other educational technology areas, and by that I mean other places where you can find support on campus. When I talk about us being siloed, all of these people in some way or another now report to me in some sort of twisted way because they had people they reported to, and we didn't want to reorganize the entire university. But these are people I work with. The Center for Teaching has 6 technologists. Now, they've got these people primarily to help support the LMS. We were using Blackboard, but also to provide support for any individual course's technological needs, right? So they clearly have overlap with the folks at Vital. 6 of them, it's a good group of people. They work hard. And in fact, we hired them as sort of as something of a genius bar for Blackboard because the faculty were always complaining about it. And once we put them in, their satisfaction with the LMS has shot up because if you just call them up and say, here's what I'd like to do, and they tell you how to do it. Again, breaking down those barriers has made that much more effective on campus. The library has 5 dedicated staff for educational technology, and this includes a guy who teaches just podcasting, GIS, visual imaging, et cetera. Digital Humanities Center, about which I can tell you more later. It's based in the humanities and arts and science. Its mission goes beyond that, so it's another place where work can be done. Most of their work right now, there's been slow to really take off, has been a virtual reality lab, but they're moving forward. I'm going to mention VUIT just because it's one part of what's going on. VUIT doesn't really do much for educational technology support, although I think we talked about this morning, they sometimes think that by putting a computer in a classroom, they've done their job. And so I'm trying to work with them on thinking about their connections with Vital, with the Center for Teaching, so that we're all informed on what each other's doing, right? So we're on a program now where we're trying to identify what classrooms, how to refurbish them, and how to design them for educational technology as we move forward. If we can refurbish a classroom every 4 years, we think we can stay on top of the changing needs for what's going on with students, faculty, and how teaching is going to go. Innovation Center, this morning you took me and showed, what was the name? What was the one you showed me from upstairs? We looked down, it's engineering. Yeah, looks sort of like that. Innovation Center on campus now. It's supposed to help develop public-private connections, right, for our students, but also just to give the students a place to go to innovate. A lot of the engineering students, it's based in the engineering building, all students have access to it. It's a place for innovation, but a lot of it is digital, not all of it. But it's another place that I would say is an area on campus. Coursera, we launched when you did. We talked this morning a little bit in our conversations about how you're using it. Just to let you know a little bit, we've done 18 courses. We're also involved in specializations. If you don't know specializations, these are, I can't remember, there's a price point for these that's a little bit higher. You get a not credit, but you get a certificate at the end that says you've learned this information, 4 or 5 courses. So we're dabbling in specializations as a way of thinking about more extended processes of courses, right? We're also looking at, developing a certificate course right now through the School of Management that we're offering. And I'll tell you a little bit about that as we move on. But Coursera has mainly been for us the place where we began experimenting with MOOCs. We've had 20 different faculty members at Vanderbilt and other partner institutions. This is important. We've taught one of our MOOCs had 6 institutions involved in teaching it. All the stats here are probably pretty typical: 30% US, 70% international students, 40 coming from emerging economies. What are we doing with MOOCs? I have a 9-college goal. We have 9 different colleges at Vanderbilt. I want every one of them represented, right? Having at least one course up on Coursera. The holdout, and it's driving me crazy, I've gotten everybody on there now except for Divinity. And I'm just saying this because our Divinity school is driving me crazy. I'm really trying to get them to move forward with online education, which is becoming more and more important for Divinity schools all over the nation. I'd like to do that because I'd like to be able to say we're representing different types of knowledge as a university, everything that we do, right, online. We talked about certificates a minute ago, or specializations. Doug Schmidt in our School of Engineering is teaching a programming for Android app development. currently has 4,300 students. Now that would be small for a MOOC, a small number for a MOOC, but these are students who are paying basically larger tuition to take these courses. This is not taking them for free. It's not taking them $50 to say that you've completed it. They pay a higher tuition dollar to take this. It will roll out in multiple sequences. It's not, and I want to stress this, we don't see these, even though there's going to be some money coming in, we're not pushing these at Vanderbilt as revenue streams, right? We're pushing them really as experiments and ways to get knowledge out and ways for us to experiment and learn a little bit more. The Owen School of Management is now teaching a non-degree program in management fundamentals. Now, most management schools across the nation, most business schools have some version of this that they do all the time. They teach these sequences of 4 or 5 short courses. They teach them to corporations. They're contracted to do this. These are not degrees. The students are not enrolled at Vanderbilt, et cetera. They wanted to take this online. Owen is seeing this as a revenue stream. So we're in the middle of doing that right now. Students pay for 4 different sequences. It's really 5 months of courses that are launched through Coursera. The students pay, I think, $2,500 a piece. So we're not talking about anything new, free, and we're not talking about something in between. This is almost tuition dollars, but not quite, right? So you're talking about a different level, and we're experimenting with that. We are talking about developing something like MicroMasters. I don't know if you're familiar with edX's MicroMasters. Does anyone, do you know this? Or so edX, who we're not partners with right now, but are considering doing so, they offer something called MicroMasters, and here's how these work. It's an interesting proposal. So if you have a master's, say, in computer science, students can take through edX for a university MIT's MicroMasters in computer science, and basically what the students take is the first semester of coursework. Real coursework. They're taking those courses, those very courses. They're not getting MIT credit for it. They get a MicroMasters through edX. However, all the partners on edX, if they want to up front, agree to, if a student applies to and enters into a university program and is given acceptance to it, they can use that for credit for the first semester of their master's program or PhD program. So it's an incentive. The way they see it is it's cheaper. They're not paying tuition dollars. They're paying edX dollars. It's, let's just say the equivalent of the $2,500 that I talked about earlier. They're paying that. The school's incentive is they're going to lose that one semester of tuition from a student. Their incentive is they're going to get, these students are applying. They get entry just like anyone else. They're getting better students if this works out well. They just started this program. I find it interesting. I'd like to look into it. I'm not sure that it's something we're going to do, but it's something we're thinking about right now. And we're looking into other types of, because of Owen's success so far with management fundamentals, we're looking around the university for other types of non-degree programs that can be put online in the same way. Law school is very interested in this type of thing. Issues with Coursera, and I hope that we keep some of this. We're taping it, so I don't know if this is going online or not, but I'll talk to this in the. Well, they know that I have these concerns, and these are things we're working on. One of the things that we had, I just did a study of other types of platforms that we could look at. Not because our partnership with Coursera is a very good partnership, but there are certain things that have happened that have made us think we need Coursera and other types of issues or other types of platforms as well. Maybe, or maybe we don't. We were teaching a course on, it was sort of STEM education, but from a Center for Teaching perspective. That course had faculty members from 6 different universities who had all signed release forms. Now, their release forms at some of these universities were that the faculty could do this and we could use their content, but only if it was nonprofit. Only if it was nonprofit, which was fine, because MOOCs are nonprofit. What, however, has happened is Coursera has now, you don't have to pay to take a MOOC, but we have to give every student the option of paying to get a certificate of completion, right? Which turns it automatically, almost every course, into something for profit, right? Every course becomes a profit course. That then meant we could not longer teach that course on Coursera and had to move that to edX through one of the other university's partners programs. We had some issues this year with the platform design, which they revamped their platform. I'm sure you're familiar with this. They went from their legacy platform to a new platform. The platform was designed because the University of Illinois was putting their MBA program on Coursera. So they designed it more for MBA programs. which is great for our Owen program that we have up there, which is a little difficult for some of our STEM courses. So we've had some problems interfacing with that. So that was an issue. And also, it's what's that?
What kind of problems?
Well, okay, so I am baffled why this has been such a problem, but they were having problems putting up assignments and having peer review of those assignments. This is Doug Schmidt kept saying he was having difficulties with the new platform. If you're not, I'll put you in conversation with it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think they're getting all these kinks worked out. I think this is a matter of it just getting started. So the business model was more set up for case studies, et cetera, and conversation. That's not what they were doing. So I found myself constantly frustrated because I was getting on news from the one hand from Coursera, we can take care of these problems. On the other hand, from my faculty saying this is not working. So that was just an issue. We started out with Coursera like you did in the idealistic days of we're going to educate the world for free. Isn't this great? Or friendly, yada yada yada. And that's great, but at some point you have to have a return on investment, and when people are putting money into it, and so we sort of I don't want to say this is a problem. It's not on the one hand. On the other hand, it's an issue because I'm going into these things in conversations with big idealistic eyes, and there's constant concern now about will this end up generating some revenue. That's not a problem in any real sense, but it's a problem for me because it makes it hard for me to push out certain courses that I know are courses that are good for the mind, but not necessarily aren't going to be something people are going to sign up for money. We were talking this morning about specializations and the wonderful courses you have here on music. Now people will sign up for a specialization, pay for it for learning computer programming. They might not for something more in the humanities. So that's something that we thought about when we started looking at other types of programs. I'll tell you about some projects we're doing on campus, some things that we've done that we've helped support. I put lunch discussion series here. This shouldn't really be under education project, but what I've been doing in order to break down silos, I bring together every month the folks from Vital, from the Center for Teaching, from the Digital Humanities Center, from IT to have conversations over lunch about issues that we have in general to break down those silos. Lynn Ramey, a professor of French and Italian, last year set up a video game environment to help students learn Old French. I can almost guarantee you it's the only video game in the world where the goal is to learn Old French. We helped support her on that. It's been very successful so far. Not a big seller, but it's working. Students are using it for that reason. Laura Carpenter, a professor of sociology, has been running workshops on digital storytelling. When she's out in the field talking to people in her research, she's helping them tell the stories in different ways this way. 3-minute dissertation projects. We have all of our PhD students now in every discipline present their dissertations in 3 minutes. They can we help support them. This is both through video, through online design, et cetera. It's to give them a way to present what they're doing and it helps them on the job market, but it also helps produce knowledge in certain ways. This year, all of our students read Strong Inside, which is the story of Perry Wallace, the first African-American in the SEC to play basketball. As a result of that, we helped produce all types of content around this, both videos, but also conversations, also apps about civil rights movements in Nashville. In collaboration, my office has set up in collaboration with the Center for Teaching, Vital, et cetera. This goes back to the podcasting thing, so I was interested in how to do it. In developing those skills, I thought we should be doing this about educational technology, and we've got all these siloed people, so we've started a podcast. We had the first 8 episodes this fall. We'll have new and 8 ones in the spring, where we're talking to people about educational technology and how to move forward on that. LeadingLinesPodcast.com, take a look at it. I think some of the podcasts have been listened to by dozens of people, so make yourself one of those. A couple of other projects. We have a conversation series on classrooms. These conversation series are faculty who have worked with different technologies in their classroom, talking to faculty who have not, who are interested. Flipped classrooms, in-class polling, Twitter, et cetera. The library has a digital scholarship series on visual mapping, GIS, scholarly publishing. We invite faculty to come to these. It would be something like this room, constant trying to get information out from faculty who are doing things to faculty who are not. Bold Fellows program. These are STEM researchers who work with the Center for Teaching to find ways to present their research. And I just wanted to mention the School of Nursing. We were having the conversation this morning, and they're their own thing. They've been doing online education at Vanderbilt longer than any of us, the rest of us, were thinking about it. So they teach a lot of their courses. I think you said you had 45% content. Yeah, ours is something like that. So every classroom is well equipped. Every classroom when you go in has the online component and then a synchronous component taking place at the same time. But it's also taped so it can be looked at asynchronously by students. They're way ahead of the game and the rest of the university. Digital Humanities Center opened this year, is funded through the Mellon Foundation. Lots of fellowships for faculty, graduate students, a couple of labs for digital visualization and mapping. Good idea, a great thing. Getting off to a slower start than I think we expected, but we're moving forward with that. It's going to be a good center. We've got good space for it, a couple of labs. Tiny Languages Classroom. Call this Tiny Languages. Here's something. I was at a meeting 3 years ago for it was a question of the role of the liberal arts today. And while I was there, Teresa Sullivan, the president of the University of Virginia, got up and she was talking about this project she had in collaboration with Duke. And I call it, Tiny Languages is sort of our cute name for it, least commonly taught languages. So what they did was a collaboration between the two of them where they had languages, Creole and Tibetan, where they taught them, and they were teaching them either because they had a grant to help teach tiny languages, or because they thought they were important for certain programs, right, for the religious studies program. But they would have 3 students a year taking them, right, 3 students per year. How do we make this something that can be more useful? They set up classrooms at Duke and Virginia using telepresence, teaching those to each other, right? When I heard about this, I was very excited because Vanderbilt teaches Quiche, and we have at most 3 students per semester taking those courses. I worked with Duke and Virginia, went to see their classrooms. We have joined a consortium with them. This is a picture of our classroom, and this resolution isn't very good, but this is actually just me right now, but what you've got is Duke's classroom here, you would have Virginia's there, and our classroom here. These are synchronous classrooms. This is not asynchronous learning environment. So at one moment, right, we have the 3 universities being taught. Now, it's a pretty remarkable. I went down to witness this taking place at Duke. 2nd semester Creole. There were 3 students at Duke, 3 at Virginia, and not a word of English spoken. So this is in the 2nd semester. It was working. I mean, they were learning the language. It was working, et cetera. So we built a classroom, joined a consortium with them. These are the languages that are being taught. Synchronous with synchronous office hours for the faculty. The difficulties you run into doing something like this is that you have to have a shared calendar for teaching. Our calendars are way off, so we have to have students willing to take these courses during their fall break and then take a fall break later, et cetera. So you have to know what you're getting into when you're doing this. It works very differently. There's a native speaker needs to be on site in case there's some help. So we have this doesn't have to be a faculty member, an undergraduate or a graduate student who happens to know this, be there in case there's any questions. The students have, which has been very interesting, every semester so far, the students have tried to find ways to get together on their own, outside of class, to get to know each other. So that's been happening, very successful. A number of virtual reality workshops on campus. We found out that we had 3 different virtual reality labs on campus, trying to bring those together. Some of these were for engineering professors, one of them at the Digital Humanities Center, so we're trying to expand those and work with those. I always love these pictures of people doing VR stuff, because you can't not look foolish, right? Because you're in that other world. And so I don't know what he's doing there, playing some sort of game, but it looks like he's on a chain. Vital this year set up a self-service studio on campus. It's a really wonderful studio set up. Jeff Shoup, our main videographer, set this up. It's not one button. There's a training session, but it's a really nice setup. Any faculty member can go in there, record themselves with PowerPoint, with any type of background they would like. It's very easy to learn to use this studio. The opening lesson is 30 minutes long. It's available for any student, faculty member who wants to use it. We set this up at the beginning of during the summer, last summer. It's used almost every calendar spot now, right? So there's that much of a thirst for it we didn't know existed. I don't know if it did exist beforehand, but once we set it up, it's being used constantly. It's a nice space. Walk in, walk out. With training, he's got it set up so that you can do all types of extra work, but it's really easy to go. Part of what I've been given was a budget for grants for innovation, digital technology. You can see the figures there about how much money is given away so far, but we have 4 different categories. Faculty working groups. If a group of faculty are wanting to do things, I want them across the university, not just from one school, but if a group of people are interested in virtual reality, or a group of faculty are interested in mapping, or a group of faculty are interested in any individual project, and we'll work on it for a year together as a research group or as a discussion group, et cetera. We have grants to help support that. They can bring in speakers, they can buy equipment, et cetera. We put out a call for 4 of those. The first call we put out, we received 15 applications. So there's clearly a thirst for that we didn't expect. We were hoping to get faculty talking. We didn't know there'd be so many who wanted to. I have student awards every year. I just started this last year. We did our first year last year. Graduate students and undergraduate students on best work in educational technology, digital learning, some project that they've got. We give out micro grants. These are really small grants, anything under $1,000. If people come to us with a project, I'd like to buy a piece of equipment. Like I said, this can be microphones, it can be gear of different types, helping them, but it has to have something to do with the classroom experience. They have to do some use of that. It can be part of the research as well. Macro grants are much larger ones, right? So these are up to $10,000 for, the first grant that we gave was Learning Anatomy through digital platforms. They needed certain software and equipment to do this. So those are larger grants. The first idea was just to give away large grants, and we thought we're going to be much more useful to all faculty, giving away a number of different types of grants. Speculative and confidential, even though I'm on camera. Here's a couple of things I want to talk to you about, things that I'm doing right now, and then I'm going to bring this to a close for questions. I wanted to put together a committee on educational effectiveness, people who are doing that research, and a committee on big data, and then I found that most of the people overlapped a lot. I brought them into a room, this group, and talked about what can we do as an institution in these areas to help enhance what it is we're doing. The 2 things that they wanted to do were, A, they saw a good reason for a curricular piece. There's a lot of research being done across the campus, but students only get bits of it, right? So is there a way to develop either a graduate certificate or something at the undergraduate level, a minor in these areas, using things across the campus? That wasn't possible before, but as we were moving towards breaking down barriers on both faculty time and curricula, et cetera, we're working towards that. They were also interested in a research center. So we're applying for one of those TIPS grants to see if we can set up something where they will have either time off or ways to work together to develop more research. We are likely to be moving from Blackboard to Brightspace. I'm just mentioning that as we went through the same process that almost all universities do, where we looked at different learning management systems. We were surprised that this became the top one. One of the things that we had to take real big consideration is the School of Nursing, which does so much online teaching, uses, in fact, the learning management system for their courses. We gave them a lot of voice in what worked best for them. Some of my colleagues in the School of Medicine are interested in starting to teach a course. I can't remember if I looked at yours on this or not. Non-degree programs for students who are either have decided that a medical education is where they want to go after they finish their education, right after they finish or ones that just need to brush up, right? So since competency areas are becoming more important on applications than coursework, these would be courses to help provide you with competencies in that way, right? So he's interested in doing this as online series of courses. We're likely to do that ourselves and not use a third-party vendor. Wild Bunch mapping project I put on here just because I like saying Wild Bunch. It's a group of alums who call themselves the Wild Bunch, and I don't know why, but they are really interested in funding projects for the library the library is interested in. The library has taken a big interest this year in different types of mapping, not just digital mapping, but largely that. And so we're putting on a lot of programming this spring. Speakers, contest, a sort of crawl through mapping as well in the spring. I'm going to be experimenting next summer. As I told you, we don't do really online courses for credit. What I have talked the provost into allowing me to experiment with is one course from the School of Engineering, one that's very popular, that'll be taught online. It'll be taught online under the idea that it's only our full-time students who will be allowed to teach it. But we have so many full-time students who are off doing internships in the summer, or some students who can't afford to be on campus during the summer. So we're going to start out experimenting that way with one of those. We're considering, we're in conversation with doing a couple of professional degree programs with 2U, a company which we'd had not a great history with in the past, but we think there's certain things that they can do quite well, so we're looking into that. Our divinity school, so divinity schools more and more are turning to online education, not fully because you have to have some of the face-to-face there, but more courses like that. Ours has been very slow for a number of reasons, and people just, you always have some faculty that are hesitant, some are not. But one of the problems this raises is this, and I was talking to their associate dean, and she said the problem is not that we don't want online education. She said, I'm sympathetic. If the faculty decide that's not what they want to do, that's okay. But the problem that leads to is this. We have graduates coming out of this program that are applying for jobs at divinity programs where online education is very important, and they're put at a very big disadvantage because they don't have that. So I asked the staff at Vital if we could do something about this. So we're going to set up some workshops or teaching sessions that are going to be about teaching online, teaching divinity online. So while the divinity school might not move in this direction, we're going to help their students learn how to do it. We hope to. Still working on a potential partnership with edX as an additional platform for MOOCs and, like I said, MicroMasters. I was in conversation with a couple of universities, and I don't think this is going to come to anything, but it was a really good idea. Open edX, their open source version of edX. I was talking to some folks at GW and a couple of other schools about putting together a 4, 5, 6 university consortium where we would support each other, market each other's courses online, et cetera, give each other information, et cetera, to make that happen. I think that's a good idea waiting to happen. I don't know that we're going to do it because we've got all these other irons in the fire. Talked about MicroMasters already, Humanities Lab Extension I talked about. The last two things I wanted to speak on, and I'll come to a close. Digital Cathedral. There's this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful building we just bought on campus. It was the Disciples of Christ Historical Society. It's right near campus. Beautiful, stunning thing, stained glass windows, stacks, and we bought it and it's empty, and I went on a tour of it, and it's a stunning place. And so, like anybody, I think, when you see a space like this, and they're like, Vanderbilt's not sure how they're going to use it. It was just something we had to buy because it was so close. And so I'm putting together a proposal to bring together all of these units I've talked about and put them in one place. And the idea would be that if somebody comes over for help on designing a course or putting it online, I can walk them down the hall to someone else who's doing this type of research, et cetera, pulling them together in one beautiful building. Digital Cathedral is sort of corny, but you get the point. You go in there and it looks like a beautiful, almost like a church. It doesn't look like anything at all digital, but it would be a nice space to pull it together. I'm also working on a full site license for the Adobe Creative Cloud for our undergraduates and faculty. Full one. Several universities are doing that. I mean, talks with UNC and Clemson have done this and set up labs. The idea being that we want our students to be digitally literate. So not only having a writing component at the undergraduate level or a speaking component, which we do, right? But to have our students trained to do what they're going to do anyway. And not only that, but to have to work this into the curriculum in such a way that they learn specific skills, whatever they're in, with some of these products. Could you do this without Adobe? Of course you could. The benefit of Adobe, right, is that the students graduating, and certainly Carolina and Clemson have a lot of information to back this up, walk out with a degree in art history, but they also are very, very proficient in certain ones of the Adobe products. Puts them on the job market, which is not my only concern. My real concern is educating them. But if this is a part of what we can do to educate them and give them this skill set, I think that's fabulous. And I think it's something that we want to continue looking at. I think I wrote down one more thing I wanted to say on here. The last thing I wanted to say, and I forgot to say this about Vital, is that group is also we discovered we needed on campus a group that would vet all of the vendors who come to campus bringing more and more products all the time. So that's one of the purposes they serve, is they're the first starting point. If somebody comes in, wants to show us a way to proctor exams online, we go there first, right? They become the experts on what's existence and what's out there, what might be useful and what not. And I've gone on too long, I'm going to shut up. So anyway, thank you for listening. Do you have any questions about what we're doing?
Actually, I do.
Yeah.
And you were working with both edX and Coursera, or
No,
did you start?
we're in conversations with edX.
So
Yes.
I'm interested in what you see as the differences between those and the culture between those two kinds of things. They're doing similar things, but
They're doing very similar things. I mean, they have different programs and different financial models. And
what's the difference in culture that you see?
the difference in culture is the difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit. There's a difference in attitude about what it is they're doing. I don't know how long that holds up. And again, I don't want to overstate this. It's not, Coursera is it continues to be a really good partner for us. The pursuit of courses that are not going to be in any way, shape, or form revenue streams, and an active pursuit of that, and I feel like edX does that in a bigger way. That's helpful to me and helpful to getting faculty interested in doing it because they know it's going to be, taken care of and highlighted, et cetera. That's a positive. I will say, ultimately, I mean, if you're for-profit or if you're not-for-profit, I guess a nonprofit can say they're not interested in the ROI as much, but they still have to have money coming in, right? They still have to support themselves. So at some point, at some level, that becomes a concern. There are universities that work with both of them. That's why we're considering it, right? And I do think that
it seems like it's a good idea not to put all your eggs in one basket.
I totally agree.
And MIT has a really great track record in this regard.
Fabulous track record, right? And I'm just also say the partner schools there. Also, they've got different levels of partnership, and there's also something about that in branding and all those types of things that universities think about. Yeah. Yes.
There's been a lot of comments and talk here, especially among faculty and grad students, opposing the corporatization of the university.
Yep.
And so there are some people who probably hear for-profit educational models and immediately, oppose it as something. Use your adjective. Can you talk a little bit about the politics of working with these groups?
Yeah. So, okay. So you have to be very careful. I really appreciate your question because I have to think about this a lot. It's hard to stress that what we're working with are for-profit vendors, and universities are doing that all the time. Bookstores, everything that you work with is a for-profit vendor.
WebAssign.
What's that?
WebAssign,
Yeah.
Pearson,
I mean, almost any.
Name all the STEM.
But even outside of digital learning, we're always working with for-profit vendors. But as soon as you say we're going to do online teaching and we're working with 2U or something like that, it looks like you've become a for-profit, right, teaching. So we have to talk about that way. And I think there are good reasons to be concerned about that. And I even find myself, when I'm talking, saying revenue stream and shuddering, and because that's not why I got into this business, right? I'm in the humanities, I'm a critical thinker, et cetera. So we have to be very careful because I don't think that's our primary goal anyway, right? Our primary goal continues to be the mission of the university, to promote research, right, to serve the community, to teach. And if we fail to articulate that becomes the problem of the message, because I know that that's what's going on. Now, that said, if we're teaching something and it happens to also bring in revenue to help support other projects, I'm all for it. But that can never, ever, ever be the starting point. It can't even be a primary point, right? It can be a benefit to what we're doing, but it should not be a driving force. And so I think that has to be talked about, right? I think that has to be talked about a lot. And we do need to be careful and disarticulate the for-profit provider from what it is that we're doing. But it's a really good question. And a difficult one, a really difficult one to handle. Yes, sir.
Along those lines, I guess, I just came back from the open conference on open education.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing, this isn't exactly digital, but are you looking at this open textbook type stuff and so on for your classrooms?
Yes,
that was a big topic of conversation at this meeting.
Yeah, but we're looking at it. I've got to be honest with you. That's not been it's not been a project of any office looking at it. And it probably should be. There are some faculty are looking at it and faculty thinking about it.
Any
And
thoughts about that, or about how to organize that, or, I mean.
I don't. Do you have?
Organize it exactly, but, you know,
Yeah, no, but
keep track of it, I guess.
But this is one of those points where where I could benefit from your conversation. If you said you learned something from this conference, what did you see happening?
It's that it was, I was aware of it to some extent, but it's much more widespread than I realized.
Yeah.
There was really quite a big conference in Richmond, Virginia, and I knew some of the players in it, OpenStax and things like that. And Lumen were the two who were running it, and I learned a lot more about this, but I'm a brand new cover at this, so.
Yeah, and I should be more knowledgeable than I am, so I don't want to throw out any questions. I have friends colleagues at the University of Kentucky who are really working in this area a lot, and it's been it seems win-win-win-win for everyone, right? So
Seems like something that's going to grow, which is why I thought maybe
Yeah.
your office was.
Yes. No, I appreciate it. It's one of those questions you ask it, and I'm like, oh God, I gotta go. Yeah, I appreciate it. No, that's a shortcing right now on my office's part.
Thank you, John.
Oh, thank you guys for being here. If you have questions later about anything or something you thought was like you're interested in just one-on-one that wasn't good, feel free to write me or call. I'm really happy to talk about these things anytime. If you have ideas, if you saw something I thought, well, that's a good idea, but you know what? I think we're doing that better. Let me know. I mean, I'd really love to hear that exchange. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Thank you all for coming today. As you can see, this will be recorded, so if you want to go back, watch this over and over and over again, you'll have that ability, or you certainly can share this with friends that weren't able to make it today. And the last thing is, I'll put in the plug, we have one more of these scheduled for this fall, December 8th, and we'll have an opportunity to hear about what other faculty here at the University of Rochester are doing in this space, as well as from a couple students. So that's December 8th, and I hope we'll see you there too. All right, thanks again.